Hi everybody, I'm going to do a question and answer today on how to pick a suit that you can split up into separates. So a suit that you can split up into an odd jacket and a pair of odd trousers, and you can mix and match and wear with other things. I once upon a time posed this question to Liverano, to which his response was, if you're going to get a suit, and if you're going to get a sport coat, get a sport coat. You know, it was a very purist sort of response. But I think that there are actually suits that separate quite nicely. It's just a matter of keeping in mind like the various details of it. So I'm going to go through some examples with you and show you what we're looking for as we go along. So first thing is fabric. There are certain fabrics I think are just very clearly suiting fabrics, right? Like this is a good example of one. So this is plain weave, clear cut. It's got a bit of a sheen to it. It's a very refined looking fabric, and it kind of needs the matching trouser. It really looks its best when it has that matching trouser. Again, here's another one. This is a lightweight covert cloth. It has just a little bit too much sheen on it to really be a very casual garment. The color is not bad, but I just think this thing looks so much better as a suit than it does as a separate. And then let's look at a few pieces that are in fabrics that are much more suitable to being split up. So we're in the middle of summer now. I figured it's a good time to show some seersucker. This is a lovely wool seersucker in cream and gray. And you know, seersucker has that lovely uneven effect to the fabric. It just stands out much more as a casual piece. It's in cream and gray. Here's another one in blue. And again, you really notice like how different this fabric was from that brown one earlier. You see that? And again, like you don't have that sheen that you did on something like that. Okay. Here's some other suggestions. This is a heavyweight olive, or I like to call it pistachio, to be honest. This is one that Taylor Cade made for me back in the day. And this one also has some lovely details on it that I will go through in a second. But you know, this is very clearly something that you could wear casually. I mean, you could imagine a pair of chinos being made out of the same sort of cloth. Here's another one, khaki cotton. No sheen, slight texture to it, like easy to imagine it being paired with casual items. And then finally this one, a Liverano cream linen. Which, you know, obviously looks beautiful and very elegant as a suit, but actually works very well as a sport coat as well. So after fabric, what else are we looking for? Well, pockets always speak volumes to me. So in terms of pockets, right, like this is what we call a jetted pocket. If we just look at that, this is a jetted pocket. It has no flap, it has no patch. In theory, this is always a suit thing. But in the case of this, Liverano does this thing where he actually adds a line of stitching around the pocket bag, which gives it that suggestion of it being a patch pocket. And I love that detail. I think it really helps the jacket stand as an independent piece rather than as just part of a suit. That's one. Patch pockets are very much a casual detail, right? So this has a pair of patch pockets at the hips. This is what we call a two patch, right? So it's two patch pockets on the hips, and then a welt pocket at the chest. This is a little more extreme in terms of going towards the casual spectrum. This is what we call patch and flap, and it's also in a three-patch configuration. So 1, 2, 3 patches, including a chest welt patch, a chest patch. Patch and flap means you've got the patch pocket here, and the flap is a separate panel attached that flaps down and covers up the top of that pocket. Pocket flaps are a little bit more contentious. For me, I don't mind them on suits or jackets. I do find when I wear, for instance, this as a suit, I will tuck in the flap because I like that clean look at the hips. But then if I'm wearing it as an odd thing, I like having the flap out. Here is another example of a three-patch. So this is a ring jacket model 7, which we've historically always done as a three-patch jacket. And since we're talking about this one, it leads us on to the next thing, which is stitching details. I think that when you have kind of stronger, more obvious stitching details, it is definitely a casual touch. In the case of this, it's barely visible, but you know, you do actually really notice it in person. It is pick stitching inset from the edge of the lapel. You see, dot, 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 dot. And to me, that is very much a sport jacket detail, right? Let's look at this tailor-made one again. This is even more extreme than the pick stitching. So this is a line of machine stitching. You know, it's solid and consistent, and it really separates out the edge to the point where you almost see a little bit of puckering, like in that edge. And for me, again, very casual, sporty detail. And then buttons. Buttons are also very important to pay attention to. When it comes to suits, typically suits have matching buttons. So for instance, like this DB, right? It has the matching brown button. The buttons kind of fade into the jacket. In the case of this blue covert, again, matching blue buttons. You know, they don't stand out so much. Whereas on this, light horn buttons. Like if you imagine this with a matching green button, it would be much harder to see it as a casual jacket, like as a jacket they could wear on its own. Whereas with that horn button, it's much more sporty, it's much more casual that way. So the buttons are another detail. And then finally, for me, there's what I call the denim test. So will this garment work well when it's sitting with jeans? Which is also why I wore jeans today. So let's see a few things. Here's that tailor-made jacket. And you know, when you're doing the denim test, it's forcing you to think about, like, texturally, does the top and bottom make sense, right? Like the jeans has this effect to it. The color is obviously not going to be consistent because the jeans will all fade in an uneven way. The jeans has some additional texture to it as well, and it matches well with this heavyweight cotton. And when you see like the buttons and the patch and flap and the third patch at the chest and the machine stitching, it all makes so much sense when it's worn as a separate. That's one example. The structure of the garment makes a difference too. You know, like the softer it is, the more casual it is. So for instance, with our Model 7, and unfortunately this is not my size, so you'll have to pardon how loose it's going to look on me. The softer it is, the more casual it is, right? So you can see like that has this kind of easy feel to it that you wouldn't get if you were wearing something like that brown double-breasted from earlier, which is much more precise and much more refined looking. And there you go. Kind of our logic for how do you pick suits that could be worn as separates. So just to summarize, you're thinking about fabric. You know, you're thinking about things that have a little bit more texture to them, a little bit less sheen to them. You're thinking about pocket details. So things like patch pockets are going to be more casual. You are thinking about button details. So contrasting buttons are always preferable. You're thinking about stitching details. So things like machine stitching on the lapel, that makes a big difference. And finally, you're thinking about the denim test. Is what I'm wearing going to work with denim? Does it feel coherent when those things are together? You know, I'd love to hear people's comments on this and people's thoughts on this, because I know there's also other interesting ways to separate suits and trousers. Jackets and trousers. But that's kind of our take on it. So thanks for watching.